guys, welcome to Little Neutron. In this tutorial, we will learn how to make an FPV drone. We will use Impulse RC Apex 5 inches frame. It comes with a battery strap, some screws, a manual and the main frame. First of all, we will assemble the main frame. At the end, make sure to retight every screw, otherwise it can lead to a crash. This is the final look of our frame. We will use iFlight Xing 1900 kV brushless motors. Carefully mount the motors on the frame. We will use some silicone for the smooth landing. These are the screws that we will use to tighten the motors on the frame. Never to use any other screws than the one comes with the frame, because even a 1 mm long screw can damage the coils of the motors. We are using Flywoo Goku 4-in-1 ESC. Carefully place the ESC at the center of the frame. Make sure not to damage the ESC by pressing hard. Make sure to perfectly solder each and every wire of the motor to the ESC. We will also use a 1000 microfarad 35 volt capacitor to reduce the noise in our drone. Apply some sleeve and carefully solder it to the ESC. We will use female X360 connector with the ESC. Carefully solder it with the ESC. Use some zip ties to tie the wires of the motors to the frame. Make sure not to damage the wires of the motors. Carefully cut the extra zip tie from the frame. The flight controller we are using is Omnibus F4 V3. Make sure the arrow on the flight controller must be pointing at the front side of the drone. Connect the connector of the ESC to the flight controller. Follow this diagram to make each and every connection. This is the positive and negative terminal of the ESC that we will use to power the flight controller. We will use this FarSky Transys KOX7 as a transmitter, and for receiver we will use FarSky Xing Plus receiver. It is a 16-channel S-Bus receiver. Carefully solder the positive, negative and signal wire of the receiver to the flight controller. We will use this RunCam Eagle camera module. And for transmitting video signal, we will use Flywoo Goku HM850 VTX. And for receiving the video signal, we will use eChain EV900 FPV goggles. We will use a pad antenna and triple feed page antenna. These combinations of the antennas give a perfect long range. Attach both the antennas to the FPV goggles. Now it's time to solder our VTX. According to the given diagram, carefully solder each and every wire of the VTX to the flight controller. Now place the camera module to the frame. For mounting the receiver and the antenna of the VTX, I have 3D printed a small part. Carefully pass the antennas of the receiver from the 3D printed part. Make sure not to damage them. Now attach the antenna of the VTX to the 3D printed part. Place it at the back side of the drone. All the electronic part of the drone is completed, and for programming the flight controller, we will connect the USB cable to the flight controller and connect the same USB cable to your laptop, and you will see the LED glowing on the flight controller. We are using Betaflight. Select the right port and then click on connect button. We have successfully connected with our flight controller. First of all, update the firmware. For updating the firmware, first we will disconnect with our flight controller and now click on update firmware. Select the board and version of the firmware. Now click on update firmware. I have already done so, I won't do it again. After update is complete, click on connect button. First of all, we have to calibrate the accelerometer. For calibrating the accelerometer, place your drone at the flat surface and then click on calibrate accelerometer. After a few seconds, the calibration is done. Now in the port section, we have to turn on the port on which the receiver is connected. In my case, I have connected my receiver to the UART 6 port. Turn it on and click on save and reboot. Now in the configuration section, in quad type, select your quad type. In my case, it's Quad X. After that, select the protocol that are being used by your ESC. In my case, it's one shot 125. In the below section, you will see accelerometer, barometer and magnometer. Turn all of the three options on. Now in the receiver section, this is the important part. If you are using a S-Bus receiver, then use serial based receiver and then below select S-Bus. Turn on the telemetry, air mode and OST and also RX lost beeper and leave all the options as it is. And click on save and reboot. In the power and battery, don't change anything. Here we can see 0 voltage showing because we do not have connected our battery. We will be using 4000 mAh 4S line battery pack. It comes with a male XT60 connector. Connect the battery and here you will see the voltage showing. In PID section, don't change anything. And now in receiver section, we will first turn on our transmitter and see if the values are changing. Yes, we can see that by moving the throttle value is changing. It means we have successful connection of our transmitter with the drone. In the mode section, first of all, we will select the arm and disarm switch. After turning on the arm switch, it's still showing disable armed because we have connected with our beta flight. For arming the drone, first we will disconnect with our beta flight and then we will arm. Then we will select two modes, angle mode and horizon mode. Now in the motor section, check each motor one by one. Make sure by increasing the value of motor 1, the motor 1 is spinning, and by increasing the motor 2 value, the motor 2 is spinning. And also make sure that they are spinning in the right direction, as shown above. Here our programming is done. Now we will disconnect with our beta flight. Disconnect the battery and connect it again. Turn on the arm switch and we can see that motors are spinning. Slowly raise the throttle and you will see that motors are increasing the speed. As you can see here, it's perfectly arming and increasing the speed by raising the throttle. Now place the battery strap and top plate of the frame. For charging our battery, we will use IMAX B6 AC. Select the amps and voltage of the battery and then start the charging process and wait for battery to fully charge. After fully charging the battery, we will place it on our drone. We are using 5 inches propellers, 2 clockwise and 2 anti-clockwise. Place all the propellers using this diagram. Now connect the VTX antenna. Now this is the final look of our FPV drone. Connect the battery to the drone and also turn on the FPV goggles.
will be back.